I'm prepared.
Okay. All right. So, hi, Carol. How are you today?
Good.
My name is Verona, and today I will be interviewing you for the post of Human Resource Officer.
Okay.
This post generally provides human resource support across the group of all employees, and you'll be required to ensure that all statutory compliance are up to date with best practices. You'll be required to assist in formulating policies and procedures, certain procedures, training, administering benefits, and so on. So tell me, in your role as HR officer, you'll be required to support the group, as I mentioned earlier. Tell me about your experiences in this field and how your contribution impacted on your previous organization's goals.
On my previous organization.
Right, on your organization's goals.
Okay. I work with a non-profit foundation and coordinate. I have kind of under my in my portfolio 45 a teachers training center and 45 schools that I coordinate, which means I deal a lot with many different people, and so I think, and after doing this, I've been relatively successful. Of course, you have, from time to time there would be something coming up that's not pleasant to deal with, but I think basically so far I've been able to do not a bad job at what I'm doing.
Okay. All right. So the job would require you to assist in developing policies and procedures. Give me an example of a policy that you developed or assisted in developing. Why was there a need to develop this policy, and what was the outcome? What impact did it have on the organization?
Actually, I developed quite a few things, but what comes into mind is having guidelines. I developed guidelines for giving scholarships, because we also give scholarships. So I developed the whole guidelines, and I also did some contracts between the students and the school, which and we passed it by a lawyer, but that it was basically what I wrote that they kept.
Okay.
So,
So how did it impact the school, the contracts?
yeah, I think that before it was very unclear to people. They didn't have the very clear, specified guidelines on what they were supposed, what was expected of them, and what they had to accomplish to be able to be on the program. So I think now that it's 100% clear, and I think we are better able to select people because of that, that process.
Okay, good. All right. As we are all aware that communication is critical to the business success, what tools do you utilize in your current role as HR officer to disseminate information and explain to me a situation in which there was a misunderstanding as a result of communication and how you resolved it?
Oh boy. Well, not working or working in places, I have worked in places that where the cultural aspects are very different to where I've come from. A lot of times you could put your foot in your mouth without knowing it, or say something or offend somebody without it being, totally not obvious to you.
Yeah.
But you can say, oh, when you say so and such a thing, it means such and such a thing. So there may have been, fortunately, I have not had many misunderstandings because of that, but this happened that somebody felt insulted by something that I said, and eventually when I found out what it is, I called a meeting, because it sort of, everybody was kind of whispering and said, I said this thing, and in my country it doesn't have that significance. And I think about, like, when you do ads, that there is just a whole culture around that is aiming to specific cultures to say things in a different way.
Yes.
And I drew an example of like advertising. when you advertise Coke, and the big thing was Coke adds life. And in Chinese, when they translate it, it says Coke brings ancestors from the dead, which is not what you want to see. So it just be like the wording.
That's interesting.
So understood that, it was not meant in that, and the connotation was that was not the connotation, so on and so on. So I think I can basically talk myself out of a corner if I have to.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. So describe to me a situation in which you had to communicate a policy change. How did you influence buy-in from your team members?
Actually, today I was talking about that. Getting people to do something. There's a particular thing that I've been trying to get people to do for a long time and showing them benefits of it. Mm-hmm. And yesterday someone called me and said, oh, you know what we did? And she said the same thing that I've been saying for 3 months. And then I told her that was very wonderful, and I didn't say, see, I told you so. I really wanted to do that, but I didn't. And she felt that this was her effort. This was her thing now.
Yeah.
So, she can take it and run with it. It's fine, but it just means that the policy is being implemented.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we're going to talk a little about customer relationship. Describe to me a situation where a customer did not receive timely feedback and was disgruntled, and how you rectify that situation.
I'm trying to think. I have to think of one. Nothing is coming to mind.
And your customers can be your internal clients, your staff.
Right. Yes, I know. I think once we had, but that was kind of also a misunderstanding that people had gotten. We were having a seminar, and people had gotten their packets with their little CDs and what have you, and somebody got a package apparently, and it was just a mistake of packing, that didn't get the CD, and she was very upset. And she had gotten a scholarship to come to the thing, and she didn't pay, and she thought it's because she didn't pay that we didn't give her a CD. And I said, no, this is just a mistake. We're packing 40 gift bags or 40 seminar bags, and it is just because somebody didn't remember to put it in. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of easy, but we usually don't have huge misunderstandings really. We kind of, I guess, I don't know, from time to time, but not huge things.
Not major stuff.
Coming, but still, people take things personally, and so you really have to get them to back on the side of what is on the good side, and say, well, this was, and sometimes you have to eat a little crow, say, well, I'm sorry, Mm-hmm. I don't have a problem with apologizing for something, even though, okay, it's not of your fault, and it happened. Right. I don't have a problem, this was a mistake, and we give you one, and yeah. Okay,
good. All right, as an HR practitioner, confidentiality is critical to, every interaction with your employees. Can you think of a situation where confidentiality was breached and how you manage that situation?
Yes. I think we unfortunately once had a bullying situation going on between two staff members bullying another staff member. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately one was in the office and had access to files. Mm-hmm. Which she opened the files so that they can continue with the mischief. That was pretty bad. That was I tried to rectify the situation by talking to her and saying, this, you can't bring personal issues into the workplace, and was unacceptable and so on. And finally, it didn't work out, and unfortunately, she is no longer with us. And on the other people that were involved, I called a meeting. I love transparency, so when something is happening, I like everybody to say, okay, let's sit down. This is what's happening. What do you think? What do you think? Yeah. And I also have to say what I think, and then yeah. And it basically of the times can sort itself out. But this time with the breach of confidentiality, it's pretty serious to someone's file and take the personal information and use it against them. So it wasn't, in this case, it wasn't something that I can just say, well, we can gloss this over.
Yeah,
that was a pretty serious infraction.
Certainly,
yeah.
That's unacceptable. Yes. Okay, so we know that this post can become overbearing at times. Give me an example of a time when you made an error in a report. How did it impact the work process, and how did you correct it?
Error in a report.
No?
I don't really think I made errors in a report. Like if I ever did, I can't remember. I don't think so.
Okay. Have you ever experienced a colleague making an error that impacted your work? One moment, because I think I'm getting an error. One moment. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
All right. So, right. Have you ever experienced where a colleague made an error in a report or on their job, and how it impacted the work process? So, and how was it corrected? How did you correct it?
Yeah, I think we kind of have a 1 week link actually right now in the office, and basically I always have to double check things that she does. She made an error on something once, and like a couple months ago, and what I did was to go online, because I feel sometimes when you say things to people, they probably think that's your personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And to put up things online and show her, this is the protocol usually, and it's not something that's not normal or something that I'm asking you that is extraordinary, but just making her aware that this is the protocol and this is what is followed by, it's by international standards, it's not by my standards.
Right.
So I think that was, always make people feel, when you talk to people about things, sometimes you get the feeling that, that's your thing, or you have something against me, or whatever, so to kind of cut through all of that, then we say, okay, let's look it up online and see what is the norm. So that's the way I kind of solve that.
Okay. Give me a scenario where you had to lead a project. How did you structure your assignments, and what was the result? What were the results of?
So you have to repeat this a little bit.
All right. Explain to me a scenario in which you had to lead a project, and how did you go about this assignment? What were the outcomes?
I'm kind of an efficiency beast. So I know so usually if I have a project, I'm very thorough in making my goals and making what should happen, doing all the benchmarks, and kind of looking after benchmarks. So I think I handle that, and again, that's the transparency with a team is very good. When you sit down and you say, okay, today's Monday, how did the week go? We had planned such and such and such an activity. If something wasn't done, we're going to shift it, but we need to know why, so that in the future it won't happen this way to us again. So I think that's, I tend to handle all projects basically in the same way, and there are lots of them.
Okay.
Just because of the nature of the kind of job I'm doing.
Okay. So as you know, training is important to organizational development. Tell me about a time when you had to initiate a program, a training program, and why did you believe that this was necessary? And what steps did you take to initiate development of the program?
I think once, what did I read? The question is kind of,
Would you like me to ask again?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just because my field is very different. I'm trying
it's different. Okay.
to link it into what to be able to answer that. But basically, I'm initiating a lot of stuff. You know, we have this series of this réseau. I want to say it's French. The English word isn't coming to me. This group of schools, and so basically there's always some kind of organization, implementation of something. When we have new schools starting up, like every year we have new things starting up. We have in-service training going on. Okay, I can say that the in-service training is probably something of bringing all the teachers to have like a camp every year for a week to do training on a particular subject, and that works very well. And that's something that we have continued to do, and I think it just made teachers more efficient in what they were doing in the classrooms.
Okay, so it was necessary to improve efficiency.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What tools did you employ to measure the success of that program?
Basically, the results of the kids.
Okay.
Yeah. That in this amount of time, what was the learning that took place, and that's measurable. So you can say, okay, the last few years, these are what your learning marks were at this point in time. So you can see the difference. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So tell me, think about an instance where you had to handle a disagreement in terms of team assignments. What was the disagreement and how did you resolve it? A disagreement in terms of team assignments. How did you resolve that?
Basically, there are. I think when people you have to find out firstly why is somebody objecting to something so strongly. So it might be for a variety of reasons. And so you have to find what that is and then try to go around it and say, well, okay, I understand your point of view. How about we do a compromise on this? What do you think about that? Or what would you suggest how we can get it done? So allowing people themselves to come up with a solution. But get the thing done, because it's going to be done anyway. It's just that the solution maybe it's a little bit different for how you would have gotten it done. But once it's done for me, okay, so if you go this way or you go that way, as long as it's done and done in a timely fashion, then I think it's okay. You can find your own solution yourself.
Good. All right, so Carol, my final question to you. Tell me, how would you approach a situation where your team was demotivated? What strategies you employed, and what were the results?
Oh, I think once we had we were having some demotivated. We had some natural disasters coming through, which is difficult for people, and then people came back to work and it wasn't, they weren't really there. So we had kind of a session where people would talk, and it was just for like a small mini retreat thing, where people just talk about what their experiences were and how do they think they can move ahead after this magnitude of bad things. So I think that was, and we actually got some people to laugh and make jokes, and this kind of always lightens the atmosphere a little bit. And some think, okay, I guess life has to go on, and yeah.
Okay, so Carol, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to meet with you and to discuss, the possibilities of you joining our team. Of course, that we have all the interviews to be conducted, and as soon as we have completed those, we will certainly contact you and to let you know if you have been shortlisted. It was a pleasure meeting you, and thank you for coming.
So does this mean I can't ask when I can start?